Hi everyone, welcome to Mrs. Caldero's spreadsheet tutorials number 5. We're almost there. So we had fun today talking about functions. We looked at the sum function, max, min, average, count, and we also looked at the date function. Now the if function and the Countif function is different since they check some sort of criteria or condition. So we're going to see how those work. At the end of today's tutorial, you will be able to write the correct format of the if function, use it correctly, write the format of the Countif function, use it correctly, and we're going to see how both of them could be used in different scenarios. The if function is first. Now, just as the word says, if. If something happens, then what? The if function tests a condition that is either true or false. So the format though of the if function is this, and you have to remember it. If you have to write it down to remember, remember it. It will be tested when you get to class. Equal the word if, of course. It could be lowercase or uppercase. Equal if the logical test. This test is, another word for this is some condition that you're going to check. The value if it's true and the value if it is false. Or each part is separated by a comma. So for example, if I utilize this worksheet that we worked on today with your expenses, if for example I want to check that if the transport cost is over, the total transport cost is over 500, I want to be able to tell Bob he's over budget or if he's on target. So therefore I could write equal if, and the logical test or the condition in this case would be if G3, the cell with the total, if G3 greater than 500, I want to be able to put that it's over budget. The value if this condition is true. So if G3 is greater than 500, the value if it's true would be put in the cell, it would be over budget. And if it is false, we want to put the terms on target. Once it's some sort of text we put in the cell, we want to put it in quotes. Let's look at the worksheets, right? Again, transport. So let us look at what really is Bob's status. So let us try it. Equal, the word if, open brackets, right? So you see you're getting prompted here. So our logical test or condition, we utilize our operators again, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to, which we've used before, right? So we want to look now at if, what is the logical test? If this value, and remember we use the cell name, so if G3, I could type it in or I could click on the cell. If G3 greater than 500, and I don't put the dollar sign, I separated my comma, so this is my test, this is my condition. If that cell is greater than 500, what would happen? I'm putting he is over budget. If that happens, I want to let him know he's over budget. Close my quotes, separate with my comma again, and the value if it's true, I want to put that that he is on target. Close my quote and enter. So we're clearly seeing that in this case for transport, he is over budget. So over budget is only in the cell because this cell here, this value here was true. It met the condition. It is greater than 500. So let us use autofill and drag it down and see how it works for the other values. So when you look at his other totals for his expenses, he's on target because it was false when you looked at the condition of whether it is greater than 500. In this case, 200 is not greater than 500, so it was false. So therefore, we have put on target, right? The if function as well can also be utilized by using some sort of formula. Let's say, for example, his mom wants to check his phone card bill, and she lets him know that if it is less than 500, she would reward him with an additional 100 to his total. But if it is greater than 500, she would reduce it. So let's go again. So equal the word if, greater than. I want to know if this is less than 500. If it is, what happens if it is? His mom will take this value and add 100 to it. So there's a calculation in there. So it's not a value or text I'm putting, it's a calculation. So if it is less than 500, she will add $100 to his next monthly total. But if it is not less, what is she going to do? The same total, she's going to minus 100 from him. Poor Bob. So enter. So it looks like his new total will be 500. Why? Because when you look at the condition, we're looking at if G10 is less than 100, less than 500, sorry. And it is. So what happens if it is true? We do this part. We add it 100. If, for example, this total here, let's say he went crazy this week and he spent 200 that week and his value went to, let's say he went to 250. Let's say, Barbara, I'll talk on this phone. 250. And his total went over 500. He would lose $100 because what was the condition? The condition was that it must be less than 500 for him to get this part here. So we can create if functions to showcase anything on our sheet. All right. So let us put this back as 100. And we're seeing that he is right on target to get his bonus, right? So let us go back now to our Countif function. The Countif function now looks at counting cells within a specified range that meets a certain criteria. Again, another function that utilizes a criteria. So for example, you could write a Countif formula to find out how many cells, say for example, in your worksheet contain a number that is greater than or less than some value. Another use is if it, for example, we could use it to find a particular word or even words starting with a particular letter. So the format is important. And again, remember your format. The equal sign, the word Countif joined together, no space, the range that it applies to, and the criteria. So say, for example, we want to look again at Bob's transport cost and equal Countif, the range that holds all his transport costs. We want to look at those that are greater than 120. And again, we put those in quotes. So let us see how we can actually get it. And remembering that we have two parts. We have the range, and we know what a range looks like. And the criteria, we have different examples, whether it is 10 in the cell, whether it is greater than or equal to 10, or some sort of text. So let's go back to our worksheet. So let us see what happens if it is, we can check to see how many times. So Bob's mom is really checking out his expenses, and she wants to see how many times he was over his weekly transport costs. She wants to see how many times he went over 120. So the format is equal sign, the word Countif, open bracket, what range? So you see again, you're getting guidance. So Countif and the range here would be B3 to E3. We want to see how many times in this range, what happens, what is the criteria we want? We want to know how many times, we put it in quotes, he was greater than 120. And again, remember, we don't put in a dollar sign, close brackets, enter. And there were 2 times. So we can see the use of the Countif. Let's try it again here. Let's see how many times he went over budget for the week. We try to keep within 500, Bob. So let's see. Countif. What is the range again? Sorry. Countif. Open bracket, the range, how many times, what is the criteria, in quote, if it was greater than 500. Close quotes, close brackets, enter. And we're saying 1 time. So we've utilized or seen the use of the if function, which has 3 parts. The condition, the value if it's true, and the value if it's false. We saw it with the use with just entering a text, or we saw the use where we can utilize a formula if the condition is true. And then we saw the use of the Countif function, where we count how many times a range meets our criteria. In this case, the criteria is it needs to be greater than 120. In this case, the criteria was that it must be greater than 500. So key thing to remember for next class will be the format of those two functions, the if function and the Countif function. So we had a lot of fun, and you need to remember those two functions. All right, see you. So I try to stay within the 10 minutes, as you can see. Bye.